Joining me now are two ladies from University of Queensland Women's Hockey Club to talk about that club's history. I have Cara Stanton and also Marjorie Harper, now Marjorie Godfrey. Welcome, ladies.
Hi.
So tell me a little bit about the history of UQ.
So this year we're actually celebrating our 100th year in competition. We were established in 1912 on April 2nd at a sports union meeting of UQ, and we're actually one of the 4 founding members of that sports union.
And I understand you were given a princely sum to commence operation?
A whole £10. So we were given £10 to establish the club, and in the first year of competition the ladies were actually asked to pay 2 shillings for a stick rental, for a better word, and they had to pay the £2 shillings to use the sticks for the season. They got rid of that after the first season, so yeah, we were established on such a large sum.
And I read something on your website which has got quite a good history of the club, about Dante the gardener and his efforts to get the grass field, or it wasn't really grass field, it was the domain, which he just marked some lines out and put goal nets out, and that became the hockey for the ladies.
Yeah, there's quite some funny stories about the history of also how the field got fenced at one point, and the hockey ladies didn't have a key to the gates. And so they became quite smart about it, and they invested in a ladder, and the ladder got stored somewhere, and each time they wanted to train they'd have to pull the ladder out so they could all climb over the fence.
I heard they actually advertised that they wanted a strong ladder, but it got changed to a strong laddie.
Yeah, it did. By some guys along the way somewhere, it did.
So they got both a strong laddie and probably a strong ladder at the same time.
At the same time, yeah.
So Marjorie, tell me about your involvement with UQ, but also how did you start playing hockey?
I started playing when I was at school at St Ursula's College, Yeppoon, and we had no hockey field, so we played on the beach.
When the tide was out?
When the tide was out. It was not too bad, but not very good either.
Bit of a slope.
Yes, I started playing as soon as I came to university. That was in 1934, and I played in 34, 35, 36. Now, you talked about the domain. Well, my memories of the domain, for quick access, we used to jump out the window of our common room.
Oh, nice.
But it was a very rough field, so we mostly went to Perry Park, which was near Main Junction.
Yes, yeah, yes. Where they play soccer now.
Do they? Oh, I see.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Yes.
Now, what did your representative, because I know from speaking to you, you played for Queensland, is that correct?
I did play for Queensland. That would have been in 1936 in Sydney. Okay. That followed our intervarsity competition, because we'd played in Adelaide the first year, then Melbourne, then Sydney. Then I stayed on in Sydney to play for Queensland. And sorry, I was going to say, it may be of interest to note that we were accommodated in a hotel in King's Cross. And even in those days, it must have been very dodgy, because we would have been close to the houses of ill repute of Tilly Devine and Kate Lee.
Nice. Nice for university girls on their trip away for hockey.
I'm sure I was very naive at the time and knew nothing of these activities.
It might not be too much different to the university girls going away now for university games.
Quite possibly.
I also spoke to another lady that was playing hockey around the same time as you, and she was talking about going to hockey championships in other states, and it wasn't getting on a plane like we do now.
No. Well, few people travelled by plane in those days, and we couldn't have afforded it anyway. So we certainly travelled by train without sleepers, and I remember several of the girls climbing up and sleeping in the luggage racks. Now, it mightn't have been very comfortable, but at least they were horizontal. So we always travelled by train.
Nice initiative from the university girls. So, Cara, I know from umpiring Division 1 a bit, some of your current day players are Jackie Day, who plays centre half and has played for Queensland Under-18s and Queensland Under-21s.
Yep.
Caitlin Marks, who's been at Australian level, who's playing for you at the moment as well. Nikki Hudson, who was Nikki Mott, who played for Australia for...
years.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
So, and represented Australia I think at least 2 Olympics. So you've had some very strong players over the years.
Yeah, we have, and it's definitely an area we're looking at developing with the club moving forward. So it's been a good 100 years, and we're looking forward to the next 100 years and hoping that's definitely an area we can develop as well.
Because you do actually have a club that covers grass and turf teams,
yeah.
which is quite amazing because you don't have a junior club. Like you don't have that feed that a lot of other clubs have. So how do you get players?
We're actually one of the bigger women's clubs in the league as well. So I think we have 8 or 9 teams in current competition. And I guess the biggest way we pick up new players is from people coming to university, and you'll find that most of them are actually from out of town. So they would have played hockey from where they're from, and then they come to Brisbane to go to uni and they're looking for a hockey team. So yeah, that's one of the bigger ways. We're definitely trying to set up links with a junior club, and that's something again we're looking to do in the future, is develop that and somehow create a feeder club, because it'll strengthen us even more. But yeah, that's definitely something we're looking at.
Send some of your players to be coaches of those school teams, maybe. That would be a good way of bringing them across.
Yeah, and that's what sort of something we're looking at, is tying in with some of the high school teams or the that don't necessarily already feed into a senior club. So yeah.
So Marjorie,
Yes.
tell me some of your memories of hockey, some of your fond memories or things that really stick out in your mind about your involvement.
Probably the friendships you make. I guess I have fond memories of some of the girls who played for university when I was there. Vi Atherton, Jean Hyde, who sadly had a very massive heart attack when she was overseas. I can't remember what year. Theo Pickvans, who was a good friend of mine. Then I remember some of the girls from other clubs. Carly Hansen, who played for Saints, I think. Dot Hansford was possibly Tax. Phil Scott, who was a very pretty player. She played for the state on the right wing. Gwen Spurgeon was another. She became Gwen Risson. So,
what about Ruby Robinson? We were talking about her before.
Ruby Robinson, yes. Ruby was a women's sports reporter and worked tirelessly for promoting women's sport, particularly hockey. And I have a feeling that perhaps, maybe due to Ruby, there must have been much more coverage in those days than now, particularly of women's hockey. That's evidenced by the cuttings I sent home to my parents. Every weekend there'd be an article about women's hockey, how we had featured, and pictures of, somebody flying down the field. So I have the feeling that probably due to Ruby, there would have been much more coverage of women's sport in those days. But it was always a lot of fun. I lived for hockey and enjoyed it enormously.
I think that's the actual most women that are involved in hockey, that are actively involved.
That's right.
Do have it as a life.
Yes.
It's their social life, it's their friends, it's often their family they're involved with. So do you see that as well, Cara?
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the best things about UQ is it's a very social club, and it's definitely a draw card as to why you want to play for them, because they're all about the community and the friends you make. So you still see it now as some of the best friends we've all made are from UQ hockey, and that's why even as non-students we still play, because it's your club and it's made such great fun for you.
And also it's a sport you can play into your older years.
Somewhat gracefully.
Yeah. But yes, you can still keep playing into years when other sports just don't allow it, which I think helps those friendships to continue. So
yeah, they become lifelong friends. Yeah. Some of mine did.
That's a memory I have as a junior as well, as I used to play for the seniors, and we all just used to mix together, and so it doesn't matter what age you are, you still can play together as well. So
we've got some models with us tonight showing uniforms both new and old. Can you guess which one's which? We have got Morgan in the new current playing uniform, including the 100-year socks. Do you want to show those off, Morgan?
Sure.
The 100-year socks, because this is their centenary year. And then we've got Tallulah in a uniform from the 30s, Marjorie?
It would be, yes.
From the 30s, so it's looking decidedly boxy. Marjorie told us that used to probably have long sleeves. This
No,
one-
I don't think so.
You don't think it was
No, I
probably
think it was
short?
short sleeves.
No tie, so that, like this, but probably
no.
darker stockings because
Yeah,
you needed some
fabric.
extra warmth and the heat running round.
Yeah. And I don't think we had that girdle. I've got some photos here, and it shows us in our uniforms, and I think it was sort of a belt.
Well, this one looks like it's been borrowed from a curtain. So maybe we'll see what the real one had.
Yes,
so.
yes.
Marjorie, what was it like playing in this uniform? Was it restrictive?
Well, we didn't feel that it was. It was the only thing we knew. So I don't think we felt restricted, even with the stockings. I don't think so.
Okay, and what was it like playing in the rain? Was it heavy?
I don't often remember playing in the rain. It was a fairly thick sort of a cotton fabric, but no, I don't think we often played in the rain.
Okay. And what was the stick like? Because it's very different to the current
It certainly
stick. I
is
can't
very
imagine-
different, yes. Yes, I think mine might have not had quite such a long curve. I'm not sure. I gave my hockey stick to one of my daughters.
How would you feel if you had to wear a uniform like the one today?
I think it's great. I like it very much.
Morgan Kennedy is now joining us, so we're going to talk a bit more about UQ. So talk to me about your involvement with the university itself.
So the university actually doesn't provide us any support. We're a non-for-profit association, and interestingly enough, after the introduction of VSU, we're the only women's club from the university to have survived, and one of few clubs who did actually survive VSU. So we used to receive some support in terms of union fees that used to come to us to help us just with the running costs, and we don't receive that anymore. The only support we really get is UQ Sport supply us a fitness trainer for our fitness training, but other than that receive nothing. So we really do depend on our fees to keep the club going.
Which is tough because playing turf hockey in Brisbane is
Inexpensive.
it is quite expensive, especially for uni students. So
And it used to be a major draw card was that our fees used to be some of the lowest in Brisbane, and we just can't do that anymore because we don't have any sponsors or any support that we can afford that for.
being at UQ, which was heavily impacted by the January 11 floods, what did that mean for your club?
It meant that the grass girls particularly, had to move their training to Downie Park, so they couldn't use our UQ fields anymore. We also lost all of our goalkeeping equipment, so that I think we ended up getting some funding from the government with the flood relief, but on the whole we sort of had to help ourselves out and like getting that equipment back ready for the season to start. So
I understand you've got a big day coming up.
We do, yeah.
It's not a wedding, what is it?
No, it's not a wedding.
Not a wedding.
We're having a centennial ball to celebrate our 100th year. And it's on August 11th, it's down at the Cricketers Club at the Gabba, and we're sort of, anyone's welcome, any past players, present players, supporters, coaches, anyone who just wants to come out for a ball is more than welcome. And it's just celebrating sort of the history of the club, and, you know, as one of the, you know, founding clubs in Brisbane, it's just a chance to celebrate that.
And there's details about that on your website?
Details on the website, or you can email us at uqhockey@gmail.com. And as we said, anyone's welcome.
So we spoke before about you not having a junior club, and you're largely reliant on girls moving to Brisbane for university to continue to grow as a club. Well, how do you see your future?
fairly reliant on those students to keep coming to UQ to study. A lot of them are from interstate and looking for a club to play with, like you said, whilst they're away from home. So that is the biggest pool that we draw from. We are looking at trying to develop some kind of juniors club.
We're sort of evolving as a club as well. I mean, it's hard when you've got whenever uni holidays roll around, you know, we lose a lot of our players, so we certainly struggle around those times. But I think, you know, the people that are still in Brisbane are sticking around at the club now, and we've had a change in committee. We've got a lot of the younger girls now starting onto the committee, which is helping out the club sort of, I guess, regenerate a bit and
remain relevant.
And and you know, a level of enthusiasm is sort of renewed about it as well. So
Must have been a lot of work to get the centenary celebrations and the ball
Those girls
organised.
have been working tirelessly getting that organised.
Yeah, and it's a lot of work, and you rely on sort of people volunteering to want to do it. But it's something that we're hoping, you know, to grow and make sure that these sort of positions are revamped somewhat over the years, and we really hope that the club continues to grow and we can try and maybe find a junior feeder club that will sort of put us in still for the next 100 years.
Because you're also one of the quite interesting clubs in Brisbane that don't have men jointly in your club.
No.
There is a UQ
No.
men's club.
There is,
But
they're
you're not
quite
a-
separate to
yeah.
us though, yeah.
You're not a joint club. There's only a couple of women's clubs in Brisbane that are like that.
Yeah,
So.
So we're a standalone women's club, and that's, I think, something that the club wants to look at developing as well, is sort of taking pride in developing women and giving women a chance to be involved in the committee, or, you know, whether it be involved with BWHA. And I know, speaking with the president, she's quite keen to do something that might, you know, develop Indigenous children, teaching them hockey, or setting up something that could be somewhat like a scholarship, where there's a UQ Women's Hockey House and the girls can board there, and that way they don't have to go home at holidays. They can live there throughout the season. So definitely a direction of still, you know, nurturing women in sport as well.
That's excellent. And I mean, I know Meg Brodie, who you're talking about,
Yeah.
the president, who's on Brisbane Women's Hockey Management Committee,
Yeah.
spends a lot of time getting the fields at Downey Park playable every week.
Yeah.
So she'd probably love to have some fields to play with out at UQ. I know that she looked at a turf once to try to get it done out at UQ, but that was around the time I think voluntary student unionism came in and put an end to that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think ideally in the next 100 years there'll be 5 turfs out at UQ for us to play on.
I mean, it would be nice for us to have more turfs just in general in the Brisbane competition, so hopefully we can sort that out.
And that would be a good draw card for training, being, you know, very close
Absolutely.
for the college
Yeah.
girls. So
Yeah, and it would mean that we would have potential training opportunities for the turf players at UQ rather than having them separate to the grass girls as well.
Yeah.
well, best wishes for the ball on the 11th of August. I'm sure it'll be a success, as your last 100 years have been. Any club, I think, that can survive and still be strong 100 years after inception must be doing something right. So good luck.
Thanks.